Pajo Gobind Pool mat jah Manas janam ka ehi laah Pajo Gobind Pool mat jah मानस जानम का एही लाह गुर सेवा ते भगत कमाई तब ये मानस देही पाए इस देही को सिमरै देव सो देही भज हर की सेव सो देही भज हर की सेव भजो गोबिंद फूल मात जा मानस जानम का एही लाह.
So welcome friends to another podcast in the Holy Truth series, given as always in the name of the Supreme Lord, who once again wishes to impart the very highest truth of what many call God, life and creation to the sincere seekers of the world, especially for the modern age. That is further supported by the Holy Masters, perfect saints and noble mystics of Sant today. Now this high truth of the ages is the noble path of Sant, path of the true saints, also known as the universal truth, true spirituality or true religion, that is so graciously gifted to seeking humanity by the great Holy Masters, perfect saints and noble mystics in every age, who are themselves the true representative of the Supreme Lord even today. And although little known among the masses, once encountered, a sincere truth seeker can easily recognize that this noble path or true way encompasses all true faiths and beliefs as the noble source of all, details of which can be found in our humble literature, spiritual centers or YouTube channel, as well as in the Holy Discourse series of ISTAuk.com. But before I begin today's session of spiritual questions and answers, I would first like to make a short introduction about who we are and what we represent here today. We are the International Spiritual Truth Association, or ISTA for short, and although now global, we originally set up in 2016 in the UK by request of the Holy Masters of the day, who derived their authority from Great Master Baba Sawan Singh Ji of the holy lineage of Sant in India, the Levant and Persia. Now our given mission is simple: to tell the full truth about true spirituality or true religion from the Supreme Lord's point of view, especially for the modern age, while also correcting the confusions of the past and even that of the present about what is the real truth. Yet this high teaching is not new. It is the age-old path of true spirituality, known today as the Holy Truth of Sant, which in fact has been discreetly taught throughout the ages to the most sincere seekers of the time, alongside the more familiar religions or philosophical teachings that we all know of. Indeed, Holy Masters tell us that the simple teachings of mass religion and mass philosophy are only there to elevate the masses to the position of higher truth seeking, so that they can understand and ultimately practice true spirituality or true religion. Therefore, our mission here today is simple: to impart the very highest truth of the Supreme Lord to those who wish to know, with all the love, grace and wonder that such a gift entails. Now for those who do listen and take heed, Holy Masters tell us that they are indeed the most fortunate ones of humanity. As for myself, I am a sincere devotee of the very highest truth of Santma, who has given his life in the service of the true Lord. As such, I do not seek any recognition, praise or reward, as I only act with the authority and by request of the Supreme Lord itself and the Holy Masters of today, to simply tell the full truth of God, life and creation for the modern age. I humbly speak, therefore, as one who has been gifted with true knowledge of that high truth, and as one who lives in the Supreme Lord's will. Thus I offer my humble demonstration and knowledge to all who seek the same. Now, as a friend on this noble path to God realization, I only ask that you put aside my human form, and instead listen to and take heed of the loving message that the Supreme Lord has to offer you via this humble form, who has himself been transformed by the Holy Masters of today. Thus I represent the proof that truly anyone can rise above their given karmic role to become truly noble once again by the true Lord's grace, if only they earnestly seek it. Therefore, everything I shall share with you today is a gift of wisdom direct from the Lord itself, for the sincere seekers of high spiritual truth. In this way, I am a humble servant and perfect friend, whom the true Lord has gifted with direct knowledge of the holy truth, which I have been asked to share with you. So although I shall speak with the authority of one who has been instructed to do so by the Supreme Lord, please do not attempt to praise or glorify this humble servant in any way, for you too are all divine beings undergoing a human experience in this lifetime, though you may not yet be aware of this. Therefore, what is given to me freely by the highest authority, I give to you the same. In return, I only ask that you open your heart and mind to the holy truth that the Supreme Lord has to offer you. Now, for those who need further assistance, they may privately contact the main speaker directly via email or video by first subscribing to our valuable information service at ISTAuk.com and then requesting the direct contact details of our main speaker from our administrators. He will endeavour to answer all spiritual queries within 48 hours of receipt, but please be patient if he should take a little longer due to his busy schedule and sheer number of inquiries. Thank you. So let's now begin with the general question and answer session from our spiritual truth inquirers as well as the audience. But before I begin with the general questions, I have a question that was answered by email recently with a view to share this with others who may be similarly querying the same. Now, the question frequently asked is this: what qualification is needed for one to become spiritually enlightened in their lifetime? And how would you recognize such a one, since there have also been several colourful saints in the past? Now, let me answer this by first directly quoting Baba Sawan Singh Ji, a greatly famed holy master of the mid-20th century in India, who remarkably took into his shelter so-called undesirables or villains, then promptly transformed them. He says this, and I quote, "The only requirement for becoming spiritually enlightened through contact with a mystic of their time is for that inquirer to be sincerely seeking, at all costs and above all else. No other account is taken of their job, their status, their family, their beliefs, their age, or their nobility at that time. Later on, of course, these things develop favourably in the disciple according to their destiny, either slowly or quickly, as per the level of seeking and karma, till they become enlightened. But the true Lord never judges, only forgives, guides, and serves." Now, this revelation is further commented upon by Huzur Maharaj Charan Singh Ji of the RSSB faith in Dera Bias, India, in a 1980s tape recording in which he says, "Even a villain can become a saint if they are truly seeking salvation from worldly struggle, strife, and ignorance, despite their karmic role at that time. While a proud noble one, who is arrogant because of their righteousness, good fortune, or good karma, is left behind to struggle with their ego or delusion. This means that a truly humble, truth-seeking, and open-minded inquirer from any background can become truly enlightened or even a saint if they are truly sincere in their seeking and practice. You see, Sant Mat is the path of love, truth, and compassion for the sincere truth seeker, and not one of judgment or blind faith." End quote. Now, such truth-seeking individuals, even while fulfilling their karmic role with the world itself and with others, who have become enlightened, are rare, and live their lives happily in the true Lord's will, always remaining in balance, happy and content, without anger or judgment, even if all else is against them or is falling apart around them, to the point of death. Indeed, only one who has attained sainthood or greater can stand such difficulties with a smile and not condemn the creation or their apparent enemies or dire circumstances for such difficulties. Thus, only a rare few would pass this test in life, and those that do can help others attain the same. They do not get involved with taking sides, rumors, gossips, or condemnations. They remain free of these negative attitudes, and they always act with love and duty, without sinister or malicious intentions behind anything they are doing, whether perceived rightly or wrongly. And they perform their karmic role and script without attachment to the result, for as long as the Lord instructs. Everything they do, therefore, whether perceived or interpreted by others rightly or wrongly, they do in the name of the Lord and their karmic script, without ill intention. Yet the world may judge them harshly at times, through gross misinterpretation of context or fact, due to the world's inherent cynicism or ignorance of karmic destiny and divine wisdom. As a result, this may occasionally bring former colourful figures or strangers into sainthood or enlightenment at various points in history, just to prove to the egotists that it is the Lord itself who is actually in charge of all creation, and not the individuals in the play, where the true Lord judges not its creation, but plays all the parts according to its grand plan, leaving only attitude and intention as one's limited freedom or choice. So, truly sincere followers of a holy master or the holy truth do not get involved in worldly or social politics or judgment, and instead simply keep focused on their own objective, letting others do as they wish without a glance. Such true seekers will also sincerely meditate, keep to themselves, and earnestly seek the highest truth, no matter how comfortable or uncomfortable that truth may be to the wayward mind. Now I hope that fully answers these commonly asked questions. So let's proceed with the main questions.
Thank you. The first set of questions relate to the masters, and the first one is around Supreme Master Ching Hai. Supreme Master Ching Hai mentioned in a discourse in February 2023 about the condition of the earth in the period November 2027 to November 2031. She stated the following: "In India, I asked them how many people will live, because there are many initiates in India from other groups like RSSB, BS. So in India, there will be 1,223,141 people initiated that survive." End quote. Is this true? And can you please explain what is going to happen at that time so we can be prepared?
Okay, I'm not going to comment too much on what Supreme Master actually says, because her audience are different to Westerners, and therefore her explanations and sometimes her answers may seem a little strange to us, and a lot of it is metaphorical. However, yes, it is true that the whole of the 2020s, in fact, is going to be called a decade of disaster, because so many problems are going to occur in this decade, from economic ruin and collapse in the West to political unrest, civil unrest, wars, natural disasters, and eventually ending up in a nice little plague at the end of it. These, she's referring to the particular ending part with a solar flare and a plague, which will be like another COVID pandemic, just to tidy things up. We call this period the Great Revolution. See, when we entered into Dwapara Yuga in 2012, since then, the world has been going through a bit of a turmoil, upheaval, and change towards a more spiritual way of life. That means that the very foundations of human greed, existence, commerce, and everything has to be challenged. And because of this, the environment's going to change. It will never be the same again. A lot of the things that we've taken for granted in the past will be permanently eradicated. And there'll be certainly some troubling times for everybody coming ahead, in wherever they may be. No one really will be spared. But those ones who are truly sincere, so the point that Master is getting at, those ones who are initiated, especially by a perfect living Master, will be protected largely from most of it, unless they kind of deny that initiation, or they are against it, or they don't practice properly. And in fact, if they start judging and causing harm in the world, then that harm has to be wreaked upon them in return, as Jesus said. So, yes, she quoted initiates, but there'll be lots of others as well. There are a lot of good, noble people in society, but there won't be the mass deaths that people have taken from this, thinking that, well, everybody else is going to be killed, That's not quite right. It's a little exaggeration. But we like a bit of drama, so we like to exaggerate. But yes, there is difficult times coming ahead. In fact, from 2025, things is going to get interesting. I'm not going to elaborate too much on it, because this is about spiritual practice and spiritual getting out of this, not trying to make this world a paradise, which it never will be, but getting out of here. So I think the main thing that most people in the West, let's say, would feel would be the economic collapse and the political and civil unrest that will occur in many places. It's already started in a small scale with Russia and Ukraine, but there's more to it than that. Funnily enough, at the end of it, Russia will become part of Europe in the end. So you could say it's a cleansing process for them, even to get rid of the old regime and bring in a new. So interesting times ahead. I would say that a person who's initiated or a noble soul would need not worry. They'll be looked after. They may not have all the freedoms and privileges, but they will be looked after. Yes.
Will the plague be as devastating as the COVID was?
Yes,
Or just on
a little bit more, in fact.
Okay.
The COVID, you could say, was a warm-up, a rehearsal. Yes, it's going to be interesting. And it's not going to come from the source, it's going to come from Siberian meltwater into the water system. And because it comes into the water system, it's going to be very difficult to control, because you can't stop the flow of rivers into the seas, or the seas into land, and so on. So very difficult. But humans have a natural ability to become immune after a while. They develop immunity. So yeah, it's all part of the parcel. It's not the only thing that's going to happen. But alongside this will be some interesting revelations about who we are, where we came from, our place in the universe. There'll be scientific achievements and developments. So technology will advance in response to the crisis, and people will demand that the truth embargo in the media is removed. Because at the moment, people may not realize that a lot of truth which has been discovered by, say, scientists or people of journalists or people of interest, are restricted in the public media because the governments really run the show with public media. We think we're getting an unbiased news, but we're not. The news is very carefully controlled not to create panic. So the government's point of view is that nothing in the news should create panic, even if it's important to us. They don't give us any credit with understanding and coping. So the view has always been, since the Second World War, in fact, started with Harry Truman, who set up this policy with the West, and Churchill at the time, was that the West should be limited in information so that another war never occurs. In other words, never give people a reason to have unrest. Always paint a rosy picture. And ever since then, funnily enough, that's been carried on even to this day. You'll never hear the real news about what's going on. So when, say, Supreme Master reveals something or somebody else reveals, or I'm even saying a few things, this is not publicly reported until it occurs. But many interesting things are held back at the moment, which are going on behind the scenes that the masses don't know about. And slowly, when the civil unrest occurs, these things are going to be coming out, particularly because the younger generation who demand truth, the old guard will die off. The last of the old guard will be dying off this decade. And that means younger people are going to come into politics, into Congress, particularly in the United States. And to start with the United States, they're going to lead the world in this information revelation. And suddenly all things are going to start coming out. Industrial leaders are going to be speaking out, like, for example, Elon Musk. They're going to be quite open and honest about what is going on in the world, what really is happening, and what our fate is. A lot of things are not known to the masses, simply because the governments of the day don't feel that they know that the masses are able to cope with it. Yeah, and so, for example, this pandemic in 2027 is not unknown. It's been watched carefully by scientists who are waiting for the permafrost to melt to the point in Siberia that the dinosaur virus DNA come into the water supply, and we have no natural immunity to this because we came into being a long time after the dinosaurs passed. So therefore, anything from that era that's still living, particularly viruses, can live for hundreds and thousands, millions of years. If that comes into our water supply, we are in trouble. And the thing is, nobody really knows what's going to happen, how bad it's going to be.
So buying extra water filters ain't going to help?
Actually, no, water filters do help to a point, but they're not going to eliminate. The best thing is to boost your immunity. I would say eat healthily, eat an alkaline vegan diet, because that's been shown to deter viruses from taking a stronghold in you. Boost your immune system with supplements and vitamins. Yeah, that's it to survive. But it's a way, you could say it's nature's rebellion. It's a way of nature saying, hey, you've been exploiting this earth too much, you've been taking too much advantage, you're harming each other as well. Now's the time to settle down. You've entered a new period of spiritual searching, seeking for answers. We have to start this in a dramatic way. We have to do a bit of cleansing, you could say. So they call it cleansing effect, the Great Revolution, which is what the saints call it. And that Great Revolution means there's going to be a lot of difficulties until the mid-1930s. And then it all settles down. Because then country after country, they'll change their political system. There'll be more transparent government. There'll be rulings to say that public information that affects the public should be made public, no more secrecy. The military, however, what a lot of people don't realize is that the governments of the day are not wholly to blame. In most developed countries, it is the military who control everything of information exchange. They consider themselves to be the ruling government forever because the military say this: we will be here all the time. Governments come and go with different opinions, right? So therefore, they're not stable or reliable. They don't need to know. This information is on a need-to-know basis. So even when some US presidents challenged the secrecy, the truth embargo military, who have their own army, Truman actually was threatened. He said, we will send our primary army. They had their own army against the government and killed Truman and the USS Army. the USA Army. So they have their own private army. That's how seriously they take this. They guard everything, all secrecy, which they want to maintain power and control. So they guard it with everything because they don't trust governments. They think, governments are just puppets. They just go on the stage, talk big, and do nothing. They say, we run the country, the military, the secret services who are placed in all the major industries, including business. There's certain elements that work with the military. So yes, there's a two-tier government in all these countries. It's not run as a democracy as you think. So yeah, it's interesting, but all this will come out. All this will start becoming public knowledge. People are going to be shocked that they've been kept in the dark all this time. And then the government are going to answer that. They have to be honest and say, even we didn't know. When we tried to investigate, we were threatened. So, it's a very interesting time for us. Yeah, it's going to be lots of fun.
Thank you. One way of looking at it.
Yes.
Okay, I've got a second question relating to masters, and this is Ishwar Puriji. Ishwar Puriji, in one of his talks, has said about Great Master authorizing him for initiating people for the first time in this country, which is the USA, and that the first initiate was to be a girl living in Chicago. And because we couldn't find a river for the initiation, we went to Lake Michigan, and at the bank of Lake Michigan, she was initiated. Very unique thing. So the question is, and it's two parts. I had previously heard that initiation happens at the third eye center from inside. But is a body of water, such as a lake or flowing river, required in the initiation process of a disciple? Dara BS of RSSB and Isha Dara in Wisconsin, USA, started by Ishwar Puriji, are located near rivers. So that's one question. And the second part is, in his talk that you just heard, Ishwar Puriji mentions that this is a very unique thing. And what did he mean by that? So there's two parts.
Okay, I'll try to interpret that second part, but because you'd really have to ask him.
Yeah.
But certainly the first part is an interesting question because, even spirituality, now we've entered into Dwapara Yuga from Kali Yuga, there's still a legacy from the past. You have to understand, for the past 3,000 years of recording of initiation, this has always happened by bodies of water. The very practical reason was the means of bathing and cleansing before initiation took place had to be done near water. They didn't have running water there. The other thing is that symbolically, flowing water, which is why the questioner talks about they couldn't find a river, so they had to settle for the lake, right? Mm-hmm. The reason why rivers prefer, because the idea is that by washing with water, you're washing away the past. The concept of it flows into the sea, get rid of all your dirt, your filth, your grime, and you start new. It was symbolic. There's nothing spiritual about it. It was just very, very symbolic. Now, that tradition is still carried on to this day. Like Jesus famously in the Jordan River would baptize people by pushing water over them. There was nothing in it, nothing, but it was a symbol that people could relate to. So, for example, Dera Bias is built near the Bias river. Again, not that Babaji goes and collects water from the river and washes people, but the concept is that it's by a flowing river because people identified in India Dera or any ashram by flowing river. The famous one in Varanasi in India, is where all the yogis and mystics hang out. So every few years, the Kumbh Mela, for example, and at that point they do all these feats of demonstration of their spiritual prowess and then initiations and so on. But this main town, Varanasi, or Benares as it's also known, is actually on the bank of the river. So historically this has been the case. So that's all it is. There's no significance other than that. And obviously it's reduced from the old school, and most people were Christian in the USA at that time. We're talking now in the 1960s here when this happened. The article doesn't mention it, but that's actually when it happened. And this at that time, the largely Christian belief was that you had to be baptized. So masters try to go with the crowd. They don't want to upset them too much by saying, no, none of this is necessary, nothing is necessary. Actually, this all happens spiritually. So they do the spiritual part, the spiritual transformation, but they do it with a ceremony. So that's why he made this statement about, oh, they had to find a lake. Because this lady was a former Christian.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what about when you mentioned it's a very unique thing?
Well, you know, it's very difficult to assess at that time without understanding the context. But really, what was unique was the fact that without a formal document or any statement by Great Master himself, that Great Master's mission was suddenly now transferred over to the West. In America, and Ishwarji was named to continue with this mission in a Western country that really didn't have much spirituality obvious to people. So this is the first time out of India something like this happened. So the unique thing is that he came to America to initiate ordinary Americans who have no spiritual background, very little history, in a country that's very commercial, materialism based, and start initiating people in the sense with this first initiation in this sort of setting and environment, which really historically has not happened, because historically the saints always were born into localities and communities that had a lot of spiritual interest, because it wouldn't be much point for them to go into a community that had no clue at all and wasn't interested. So this is the first time. So that, I would say, is the unique thing.
Thank you. Okay, next question. Do all initiates of a perfect living master go to the same place on the astral plane? And is the master the first and only soul they meet?
Well, firstly, masters don't go anywhere. Yeah, they exist at all levels in the form that level determines. So in the astral form, for example, in the astral realm, we say we meet the radiant form of the master. But the master doesn't have to travel to get there. Neither does he have to travel from Satgurus, nor does he have to travel from the physical form to go there and meet the disciple. It's not like that. He permanently resides there in the radiant form. Like we do, we have our own form in the astral realm. We have our own form in the cosmos, but we're not in tune with that. We don't connect with that. We think we're just one solitary being physically here. We don't understand that we are multidimensional beings. We come from realms of existence beyond our imagination, which empower the lower one. So each one produces a more and more restricted one, because it's much more fun to play a game with strict rules. You know, for example, if you have chess, but you don't play by the rules, you just knock over all of it. Where's the challenge? The challenge we opted for was to be progressively descend into lower and lower forms of existence with greater ignorance and with greater restrictions, and still manage to escape. That's the challenge. Yeah.
So do initiates go to the same place on the astral plane?
It's not quite like that, because the route you come into the creation is the route you go out, and every single one is slightly different. So there's not a special place. There is an end place, I have to say. The masters take you there. It's like if you, for example, come into this world, you can be born in many countries, but eventually when you go to see the master, let's say you go to Dera Bias and you meet Babaji there. Okay, yes, so he resides there. That's true. But it doesn't mean that the disciples all come into the country the same way. So the meeting place is actually when you meditate for it. There's two ways, either upon death or upon meditation. Upon meditation, you'll meet the radiant form of the master in the sub-astral level, not even at the astral level. What will happen is the master's form, well, usually the face, the eyes, will appear to guide you through the sub-astral. The sub-astral is a very hairy experience. You'll be taken through, so you're blinkered. And we call this radiant form, and it's very soothing and comforting. Sometimes people say it's just a light. They don't see the clear master, but they see something that's comforting. The comforter, as Jesus said, I will send you the comforter. So the comforter comes and collects you and takes you then to a certain location the capital of the astral realm called Kanwal, which is the entry point to the next realm. So the reason why the masters sort of draw the soul that way is because that is the next port of call for them. They're shown the big tower of light upon which Lord Indra sits and allows or disallows people to access. So there you end up. A master gives you instruction from that point, where you can ask all your questions if you still have any. But mostly you listen. Mostly instruction is given to you. Things are shown to you. The first thing you realize is that you're not the body, that this is the real you, the spiritual you, the very powerful you compared to the human body, the one who can see 1,000,000 miles, hear for 1,000,000 miles, can imagine anything and become that thing. This type of being is really you. Then you realize that you limited yourself when you came to the physical form. So it's a very magical experience of revelation. You don't have any question. You're just shown the truth, and it's overwhelming for you. Overwhelming for you, you know? But at the same time, because it's so overwhelming, the master has to be there to kind of give you a grounding, a focus. Because there's so much wonder in the astral realm. You could just spend forever there. You could think that you've entered heaven or this magical kingdom. You'd say, why would I even bother wanting to come back into the physical form? Or why would I even want to bother proceeding? This is a magical place. If you, let's say you suffer with so many illnesses or you're overweight, you feel nothing there. There are no illnesses. Yeah? No matter, nothing wrong. You feel perfectly fit. You feel fine. And when you have to come back into your sickly body, you resent it. So masters have to force you to come back. Nobody wants to come back to that limited, sickly form after experiencing their lightweight or weightless, really, form, perfect form. So yeah, it's lots of interesting things go there. But no, people come in by a particular route, master greets them, then he takes them towards Sahansar Kanwal without them seeing anything. So he tries to distract them from the astral world at large, because there's so many wondrous things that they just go sightseeing forever until the end of creation and never tire of it. So master then draws them. So that's what we mean about meeting the radiant form, why you meet the radiant form there, because that's the only way you could be taken to the appropriate place to continue your journey. And then you sit in meditation there. So the master places you in meditation to meditate on the form that you are there, to cross through the Canal tunnel, get past Lord Indra, and so on. There's a journey process, I think I've described several times before. But the process is through meditation. So the master sits there with you in meditation and takes you through. So that's why there's so much talk about the radiant form, and everybody praises it, the masters really praise it. Because without that form, you would be utterly lost. So the souls who make it there by themselves, like the yogis, for example, which you can do, or even some really devout religious followers, they enter a land somewhere, according to the route they've come in the middle of nowhere. Now what? They're at the mercy of everything there, all entities, both angelic and demonic. Now, depending on their karma, which way they're going in life, you know, how they live their life, certain entities greet them. You know, so they can have a very positive experience or they can have a very scary experience. That's why Babaji said, don't meditate without a master, because if you don't have very good karma or you have very bad attitude and so on, you can enter some demonic things that will scare the life out of you and never sit for meditation again.
So based on what you're just describing,
yeah,
I'm going to ask you a personal question,
okay,
if you don't mind.
No, that's fine.
Based on what you're just saying. So I know you're pretty enlightened, okay? I just have that gut feeling.
Okay.
And I know you meditate. I know you meditate a lot more than I do.
Or contemplate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Because you can't meditate 24/7. You can contemplate 24/7.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I know you meditate.
Yeah, okay.
So, and I guess my question is, how do you cope then with this physical world, knowing what you see and knowing how things are? And you have that awareness and knowledge and wisdom and all those things.
I'll tell you one thing, that this sort of question would be asked by somebody who hasn't got the experience. Once you have the experience, it's automatic. It's not that I sit there and calculate how I should be. It's a helplessness to be the real you. So if the reality is that this body, this physical body and this world is not real, it's just a shadow, it's a temporary character you're playing in this life, but you are much bigger than that, would you really, knowing this for sure, would you really take anything going on here seriously, even if it affects your character? Automatically then, you become a forgiver, you become tolerant, you become patient, you become detached from the whole show, yet enjoy the whole show for what it is. You play your part, you take part in it, you become a participant, but you're not attached or obsessed by anything here. It's a freedom, but it's natural. If you discover now that suddenly you're related to the King of Siam, yeah? You're the daughter of that. And now you're suddenly sitting here.
This doesn't matter.
Would you take, and you've got all the wealth at your disposal, all the power, that's your palace, that's your home. When you come here to this country now, would you still worry about your petty life here? No. You'd be just laughing at it all. You'll be taking it for what it is. So it's not that there's a struggle involved in the sense that, oh, you have to come here and struggle. That's a very human way of thinking. It's when you become, remember, enlightenment at different stages. So let's say you just become astrally enlightened. You just see your astral form, the true form in which this human form is based. That is sufficient to convince you not to bother with this world, not to take it seriously, not to take anything that's going on seriously. Because no matter what what's the worst thing happen to you? You can be killed here. What happens? You go back to the astral form, which is your real self. So at all these stages, there's no real fear as such. This is why the saints who behave in such a way don't like to be praised for what they do or what they can do, because they just say it's natural, and if I was to take you there, you would do exactly the same. But because for us it's so strange in the physical, when we look at a saint somehow overcoming this, somehow surviving the worst things, and you just think, how can you keep your balance and your calm so much? And they just say it is natural. We don't have to make an effort. So the answer is there's no effort in. Once you have seen, then you can't. In fact, the opposite. You have to act, because humans are strange creatures, and they sometimes feel that if you don't react the way they do, that you are somehow alien to them and they won't relate to you. So sometimes you have to pretend, yes, you're upset. Yes, this is sad. Yes, this is good. Yes, that is. You have to pretend to associate with human values. But human values are very limited based upon societal development. And each society has its own set of values. What one society says is good, another says is bad. Which one is right? It depends on the society you live in, let's say the religion you follow, that you adopt certain rules and you say this thing is bad. Another group says, no, this thing is good, that thing is bad. And that's the problem we have because of ignorance here of our reality. We make up stories about what we think is right and wrong, and we live by them until some wiser one comes along, shows you how to live a better way, and you start adopting it. We call these people influencers in some way. So, that's the reality of it. It's quite natural to be yourself when you find out who you are.
Okay, thank you.
Right,
next question. Did Jesus incarnate here again after his role as Jesus Christ?
Many times. You see, even in the Bible it says, I will come again. And he... Jesus was a symbol of his time. And he taught his disciples many, many things. And there's many quotes in the Bible I could quote about his mission and the misunderstanding, including when he said, I am the light of the way. So long as I'm in the world, I'm the light of the world. So long as I'm in the world. So what happens when he's not in the world? That part is ignored. So Christians still worship Jesus, who's long gone, and not look for the current Jesus, because they think that the Lord is limited. So therefore he'll only come in the form of Jesus. He has to look like him, wear a loincloth, talk like him, whatever image, depending if you're a Westerner or a Coptic Christian or a Russian Orthodox Christian, Jesus will appear in a certain way to them. Yeah, they've all had their own versions of Jesus even. So, but that's not how it works. The Shabbat, or the holy power, the Holy Ghost that Jesus spoke about, the Holy Spirit that gives them the enlightenment, can be born in anyone. It can come into somebody and then that person becomes Jesus, but it won't be called Jesus. They won't even refer to Christianity. They will just give the teaching of the day according to the population they're born in. So the answer is that masters, all holy masters, are spirit in form, and they all come from the same ocean. So there's no distinction between them. So it is incorrect to think that this particular individual will come again in the same form. No. And that's the problem with Christianity. They're waiting for the second coming of Christ because they expect it to be a certain way. The trouble is, none of the people who are waiting have ever seen the first Christ. How do they know what he really looked like? There's no sketches done. There's no real descriptions of him. There's nothing. Yeah, he could have even been a woman. It's just the fact that they said he gives a clue that he was a male. I mean, what else do you know? Very little is known of what he actually looked like. So they just give their own artistic impression, let's say, creative expression of what they think Jesus looked like. And from there, they expect, okay, now that's the one that's going to come. That's the problem.
Thank you. Right. In last month's Q&A, you stated that Prophet Muhammad came from the astral realm and Buddha came from the causal realm. Which realm did Jesus the Christ come from?
Well, Jesus was also from the causal realm initially. But towards the end, he managed to connect with the soul, pure soul, the Parbrahm, right at the end. So interesting, Jesus is an interesting character because he started off very much as a person who had some sort of vision of the astral realm. In other words, he knew he was a spiritual being having a human experience, but he didn't know his full reality. So he started off by saying, I have been sent by the Father. Okay? So later on, he then says, I'm the son of the Father. You know, but then he also said everybody is sons and daughters of the Father. So then he established a relationship between him and the Father. Because being sent by the Father doesn't mean you have a special relationship with the Father. Just that you're a prophet, you've been sent. Then he had this special relationship. He's a son of the Father. And he said, all ye gods, he addressed the audience, and all of you are sons and daughters of the Lord. So he clarified that, although Christianity tried to make him separate from them. Then later on he said, I'm one with the Father. I and my Father are one. Father knows my bidding, I know Father's bidding, I do as the Father wills. This indicates his own personal journey while he was here and how he eventually became one with God. Now at that point, he understood the soul, the pure soul, and not the higher mind. And therefore he exceeded Buddha in that sense. He didn't go all the way, but he got to the point where he was able to introduce the concept of love. So his message was not practical like Buddha. Buddha was all about practical psychology. You know, he could have been a modern day psychologist, the way he answered everything. There was no real love in his argument. Jesus introduced the concept of love of the Father, or love thy neighbor as thyself. All of this, love, is a thing in Christianity which is very unique. Because, yes.
As far as I'm concerned, there's only one God.
Yes.
And it's God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit, or the Holy Ghost. Does that mean God himself?
You see, the Christian version of God is very different. But yes, there is, to answer your first question, there's only one God. There's only one ultimate God. But the Lord himself has divided himself into entities to give teachings. For example, if you have the 5 regions up to Satgurus, we understand, then that each region must be headed by a deity or some power representing the Lord. So whether you say the Lord's representative is the same as the Lord, which is true, or the Lord's representative is a manifestation of the Lord in that particular dimension of existence, that's true. Depends which way you want to look at it. But ultimately there's one. But the one has divided into the many. Yes. Yeah? That's why Jesus himself said, all ye gods. Yeah. Right? And he even said, when they asked him at the end, when you're gone, Master, what shall we do? He said, what I do, ye can do better. That's very interesting. Why would somebody who is the only son of a God say that you can exceed him? because he had touched upon Parbrahm. He knew that there was more to come, but his time was up in that region. So that's why he made that bold statement. There's lots of choice nuggets in the Bible. If you're really a true seeker, you can read through the general propaganda, you could say dogma, and you can get through some nice nuggets of information that seem to stand out differently from the editing that was done in the Bible. Because again, the Bible you see today is not the original Codex Bible of AD 400. We have found the Codex Bible of AD 400, and there's a lot of differences. For example, the virgin birth wasn't included there. That was added much later on to make Jesus special. Then the resurrection is not even included. The things that people celebrate Easter in Christianity, that's not there in the original Bible. Now, the Bible that's closer to the time of Jesus is bound to be more accurate than the later Bible. So you have to think to yourself, how many additions and how many takeaways have been? I mean, Mary Magdalene's gospel is not in the Bible anymore, which was in the original Bible, because she was a female, and the men who ruled the church decided that females are secondary citizens. They're not as noble and holy and spiritual as men. Yeah, so that's why there wasn't even allowed female priests. There's a lot of controversy in Roman Catholicism, to do with this. They're slowly now yielding. But interestingly, in the Vatican, this evidence is all there. If you go to the archives of the Vatican and you go into the secret Pope archives, you will see all this evidence they've collected meticulously over the development of Christianity and what has been done in Christianity's name. But to say now to the public, for the Pope to say, okay, I'm going to open these doors and tell the truth, most Christians will abandon him. So for the sake, again, of public order, let's say, and peace, it's easier just to currently go with the flow. So the popes are fully aware of this, because one of the first things they're shown is the truth. The documents, you hear about the Vatican archives, and a lot of it now has been digitized and publicized for the public, but there's a secret area which certain documents will never be revealed, and for very good reason, because they're quite damning to the whole setup. Nevertheless, they exist, and the popes wait. Each pope thinks that they'll be the one who reveals it. Like Pope John Paul II, he thought he was in a position to maybe... Yes, go ahead.
Because the Pope wants to just bring in one day of worship now, which is Sunday,
yes,
and not Saturday. So this is...
Yeah, this is just... You know what it is? The world is a busy place. In the past, it was 7 days of worship, and 3 days, including Fridays. Then it went to Saturday and Sunday. Now it's just Sunday. You see, the Pope has to... He's a social, religious leader. He has to go with the society, what the society demands are, because the Christians follow him religiously. And therefore, if they're struggling with with coping with Saturday and Sunday, he's going to make it simpler for them. So eventually, these religions will fall away. During this century, there's going to be a lot of revelations now about truth. I spoke earlier about truth being revealed in many areas, including religious truth. There's been a lot held back. For example, the discovery of Jesus' tomb in Kashmir, which is largely verified. The fact that after 6 hours on the cross, he was taken down by the sympathetic centurion. Nobody dies after 6 hours on the cross. It takes days, 3 days at least. And many other things, like the fact that the disciples came with herbs and ointments to heal wounds, not for the death ceremony. There's many discrepancies in the Bible that just don't make sense. The fact that it was Mary Magdalene who was the first one to have a vision of Christ to tell the others, right? But she was female. Allegedly a prostitute. She wasn't. And there's many historical evidence to show that Prophet Isa, as he was known at the time, walked the Silk Road to Kashmir. The archaeological evidence is outstanding, and they even have a body, but at the moment it's not been DNA'd. So the thing is, in the future, lots of things, not just Christianity, Islam is going to be found out, that the fact that Prophet Muhammad, bless him, wasn't born in Mecca, but was born in Petra, so the mosques are pointing the wrong way. Original mosques were pointing to Petra, but now they're all pointing the wrong way because of the fourth caliph's decision to move everything to Mecca, because that was his tribal location. a lot of people don't know the truth. So when they're born into religion, they just go with the cycle of teachings as taught, but they don't do their own research. They don't say, what is the truth? That's why this part is about truth seeking. Truth means whether it's uncomfortable or comfortable, you seek the truth no matter what, because all you want is the truth. Even Jesus said, above all else, he said, seek the truth, and the truth shall set you free. He didn't say nothing else will set you free. He said no amount of worship, devotion, he said truth shall set you free. That's an interesting statement for him to make. He could have said, I will set you free. My Father will set you free. He could have said that object of worship can set you free. The temple should set you free. Your practice will set you free. No, he didn't say any of that. He said simply the truth shall set you free. So, he's a great leader of his time. The trouble is that the Westerners and people now have taken his teachings and totally messed it up. He would not recognize Christianity if he came here. He would think this is some alien religion. He would see nothing of his teachings in current Christianity, because he taught pure spiritual truth to his disciples. And it was a simple system, without a church, without any kind of building or structure, without ceremony, without anything. In his day, it was all about dying while living. He says, dying while living, when told to the disciples. What did he mean by that? Meditate, leave the body, exactly the same as the Eastern saints taught, no difference, and find the truth of the Father within, connect with the Holy Spirit. He will then send the Comforter. The Comforter wasn't the physical, it was the Holy Spirit. So Jesus in every way referred to Sant, but he was in the Middle East, and he used different terminology. But the essence was exactly the same. Meditate on the Lord's name, right, and go within and see everything for yourself. So those disciples who were close to him, he taught this dying while living process, which is another interesting thing. What does that mean? Christians have taken this now to be reborn as Christians. So, because he says, unless you're reborn, unless you're born again, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven and all of that. And what does he mean by that? Born again means go to the astral realm, go within, see who you really are, the real you. Yeah, but now Christians take it as being baptized. So, humans, when you give them certain information who are limited, will naturally take it and adopt it into a limited form. And all religions suffer the same fate. But Jesus was a great saint of his time. Okay, he didn't make it all the way, but that's nothing. But his life is a demonstration of how somebody born to a religious, spiritual family, he was an Essene after all, he was a very specific sect of Jews at that time who lived in the desert and they were isolated from mainstream. So he was already radical, even by birth. His family were Essenes. So they're already considered to be out there, compared to the mainstream Judaism. But nevertheless, he was a Jew, and he initially started off with following the laws of Moses and everything like that. But he was a truth seeker. So he went into the desert, disappeared for 40 days. Why would he do that? He wanted to find the truth. The only way he could do that is get away from everybody and meditate. There's many examples of Jesus' journey that parallels later saints. And when you look at all his stages, ignoring all the embellishments, the metaphors, the parables, and all the things that have been added in, if you look at this particular individual's journey, it's so remarkably similar to any saint. You can take them anywhere in the world and exactly the same. And that's what I found really interesting. And then when I was given that privilege to see inside who Jesus was, what he did and everything, I was shocked at how different was his life compared to the way it's portrayed today. And the actual core message of what he taught is missing. I think the only thing that the Bible really keeps is this point of love. So okay, we'll move on now to the next question. I think we've got quite a few to do. Hopefully that's answered the question a little bit.
Thank you. Okay, the last question relating to the masters. The past masters came for their list of souls. Why is it that when these masters have left, now many years ago, Buddhists, Christians and Muslims can call on the name of Buddha, Jesus and Muhammad today and their prayers are answered? Miracles happen, they see visions and prophecy, etc. Can you elaborate on this?
Well, I think this is a very gross misrepresentation, because if you ask the majority of people today, which is why they've become atheists, do they believe in God? One of the things they say is, when we were in troubled times and we prayed, nothing happened. Yeah. So if you think about it, if all their prayers were answers, as this person claims, then everybody who simply prays would have their, including villains, say, please help me rob this bank. They would have the bank robbed and everything successful. Everybody will be successful. Why would anybody leave religion? The fact is that religions become unfavorable because the exact opposite is the case. People don't get their prayers answered. How the prayer system works is based on merit. Now imagine a benevolent father who's fair to all, absolute fairness. Someone who lives a noble, good and great life, who puts in spiritual practice to their credit. How can they be treated the same as somebody who totally is against all of this, seeks to harm everybody, abuse everybody, and is bad, in quotes, by human terms, in every way, or even evil, as the Christians would say? How can they be both treated if they both pray with the same result? They're not. So prayers are only answered if you have merit. So there's a merit system in place. So the Lord likes to help everyone, even the villain. You know, if the villain prays to the Lord, please help me rob this bank, he'll say, okay, you've actually asked me, you've acknowledged your connection with me, you've acknowledged I'm the authority here. Right, I'd like to help you, but let's look at your account. Then you look and say, sorry, you don't have enough spiritual merit that I can use. Therefore, I cannot help you this time. Get some merit, and when you ask again, let's see. Whereas similarly, let's say a priest in the church, right? And there was one famous incident. I'm not going to tell you the whole story of this priest who just was so adamant that prayer is everything, and the church still got burnt down. He prayed, oh Jesus, please help me. The church has been burnt and been ransacked, and everything's been taken, and blah blah blah. I'm doing this in your name. All of these things. The Lord said the same thing to him. Well, let's have a look at your credit. This is in medieval times. It's a famous story. And there was no credit. He said, I'm sorry, your church will burn today. Because he had no credit. You have to understand, these medieval priests were really figureheads, puppets of the king. They hoarded wealth. They exploited the population. They did many horrific things. If you look at medieval history on the church, how it amassed wealth, how it was a business. It was an enterprise in which they used Jesus and God's name. Yeah, the real truth is there, actually. In fact, many people already know this, but just for those who don't, it was a very turbulent time. Popes themselves were very dodgy characters. They were incestuous, they were killers, there were some really colourful popes in history, I'll tell you that. If you read the story of the popes, you'd be absolutely shocked. But still, the Westerners held them in authority. So even so they knew this pope was totally bad in any moral sense, right? They would still ask them, say, can we have permission to do this and that? There's this fear of going against the system was greater than their knowledge of how bad this pope really was. Yeah. So I'm just saying that, yeah. So it's not the case that all prayers are answered. But some people do get their prayers answered. But if you look at the way they live their life, their attitude, their seeking, you can see it's quite easy for them to have merit in the account. So even for the smallest things, their prayers are answered. So yeah, particularly selfless helping others selflessly is the biggest thing. If you're not a meditator, you're not engaged in touch with yourself. So even before you know anything about spirituality, that's building credit. Where you do something because it is the right thing to do, regardless of any reward. Even if it goes against you, you still do it anyway. Such individuals have to be rewarded. If they pray, the Lord will do the same thing. Okay, I've acknowledged your prayer, now let me look at your account. Yeah, you got the credit. Even if they ask for the most ridiculous thing, they want a red Ferrari in the morning outside their door, the Lord will give it to them. Not that they tend to ask for these things, but they could, because they have the credit. The Lord has to obey, even if they're wasting it, because of their limited understanding.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Right, I'm going on to some questions relating to meditation. Can you please give us some practical tips on how to withdraw attention from the body and experience that we are sitting behind the eyes in the centre of the head? Because it is one of the most important parts before starting the Simran.
I've explained this many, many times. I'm going to keep this really simple. Maybe this question has not heard a more fuller reply. But because of time limitation, we've got many questions to go through. I'm going to keep it very simple. The most important thing is not expect anything when you sit in meditation. You're doing this as a duty, as obedience to the Master. The truth is that your effort, your practice does not yield any results without the Lord's grace. There is no amount of physical practice you could do here that gives you spiritual enlightenment. I can assure you of that. What it is your time that you put in. The time, the most precious thing you have in this world is your time. It is the only thing you can never get back. You can lose everything else, all your possessions, everything, even lose a limb and get an artificial one back. You cannot recover lost time. That is it. So the yardstick, the measuring mechanism that the masters use is time. If you put time into your own self-inquiry, onto the spiritual inquiry, onto improving yourself, the Lord rewards this regardless. So the understanding is that, firstly, have no expectation that you are achieving anything. It is not in your hands. When you sit with a mind view of obedience. And because it is comforting. When people sit, it's a way of them getting away from the world, even in the middle of the hustle and bustle, withdrawing the attention into their origin point where they project their consciousness as life into the physical world through the senses. If they can withdraw their attention there, then they're extremely relaxed. So it has psychological benefits. So again, because when you're more relaxed, you have more clear thinking. So people are able to gauge things better when they're away from the hustle and bustle. So this is a kind of temple that you can carry with you everywhere. You don't have to find a retreat somewhere or a cave or a tree. You can actually do this within yourself. So the whole point of meditation has practical reasons, but also comforting reasons, and also obedience particularly. Now, for one who sits without ego, without expecting anything, they don't have to do much. Actually, everything is done for them, surprisingly. But for most people, there is a little bit of reckoning to do, a little bit of a practice to do. And that means that when you sit, you must sit only after preparation. Let's say you've been having a really busy scheduled day, and you try to focus your attention on the eye center. The whole day you've been ignoring spirituality, and suddenly now you want to get in tune. It's not going to happen. The time allocated for meditation, 2.5, is simply not enough. So people don't get anywhere. What they don't understand is that the life revolves around meditation. Masters say this. What does that mean? It means that the entire day you're doing the Simran, you're contemplating upon the truth, you're thinking about the Master, the wise words, you're wondering at the marvel of creation. You're already prepared mentally and emotionally for when you sit. Now, when you sit, it's far easier to concentrate on the eye center when you're already halfway there. So the preparation is the key. Then we know how to focus on the eye center. That's been taught to us. Yeah? Already that's been explained many times. And the person who's initiated knows how to do this. They've been told. But the sentiment behind it, the feelings behind it have to be in tune, in line with what they're trying to achieve. If they're doing this reluctantly, or with a lot of stress because their mind is thinking about all their worldly problems, then it's no wonder that these people don't even get to the eye center, let alone have an experience. So the best way is to totally relax and to totally be committed, yeah, and then naturally focus with your attention by closing the eyes and imagine yourself sitting at the eye center, sitting there looking as the individual there in the eye center itself, looking outwards. And there's certain masters have given various ways of getting there, and I won't go into that now because this isn't too much for this session. But you could use any one of those practices to get there, but the idea is to be sitting there with yourself alone, you and the Master alone, no one else. Now, if you can do that, that's it. Now, to do that, you do the Simran as well. It's incorrect for this questioner who says, first you have to get to the eye center and then you start your Simran. That's not true. Simran helps you to get to the eye center. It empowers you with focus. Because when you do the Simran, your mind stops chattering. That's the point of Simran. And when you do dhyan of the master, even just remembering the time you saw the master walking past, this occupies the visual aspect. So now the vision and the talking of the mind is occupied. And this is the mechanism by which then you're able to naturally withdraw. Because once you're occupied and they come from beyond the physical, they will draw you towards the eye center even. They will take you there by themselves. A lot of people who've experienced suddenly reaching the eye center have not done any particular practice. They were just so focused on their Simran and contemplating the time with love and devotion that they had when they saw the master walking somewhere. And they suddenly find next minute that they're withdrawn. It's like that. It's not like some sort of stage, signposted stages and so on. It can happen at any time when you're least expecting it. In fact, it often happens when you least expect it. Because when you're sitting there with this idea, I'm going to go inside, I'm going to see something, you never will. I'm telling you that. So never have expectation. Because it is the Lord who is in charge. You have to understand this is the Lord's work. You are simply presenting yourself there. You're simply preparing yourself there. You're simply purifying yourself. Call it what you like. You are putting yourself in a position where the Lord has an excuse to reveal himself. That's it. There has to be some sort of testing ground.
Okay, thank you. Can you please explain at which stage in meditation we will meet the radiant form of the Master inside?
Yeah, I mean, once you cross the eye center, when the first door is open to you, you'll enter the sub-astral plane, which you have to cross. And that's the first time when you cross the stars, you go through the starry sky, then the moon, you pass the moon, and then you come to the sun, and the sun is coming directly at you. And it's a very testing experience, let's say, because it tests your faith. Now you're sitting here with a prospect of being burnt to a crisp in sun, because it looks very much like the real sun, and your knowledge of the sun is it's very hot, and if you get too close you burn. This knowledge does not leave you when you're meditating. So when this sun is coming at you super fast, you naturally have a fear. It's the first time you're naturally hesitant because this is so real. It's as if I shot you into a rocket right directly at the sun, and all the things you've heard about the sun are true, and you know it's certain death. So you carry that sentiment with you. You know, certainly in the first time. What happens there, the wonderful thing is the master's face appears. Because when you're doing the Simran and you ask master for help inside, master's face appears, not the whole being, just the face. And it blocks you a little bit from the sun. So he comes between you and the sun, and you still carry on heading towards the sun, and then the sun explodes into a million fragments and you enter into the sub-astral world. And then you become relaxed. But of course, it's fraught with dangers. There's all kinds of very hostile beings, and including ghosts and spirits, all residing in the sub-astral realm, which you have to cross. So the master helps you cross that region too. The thing is, once this is done, you don't have to go through all this again. Next time you withdraw, you will just go immediately to where you left off with the radiant form of the master. So once you're taken, say, to the full astral realm, then the full radiant form of the master appears like you. And you are also radiant. This is the thing you have to understand. Both of you are radiant. Yeah? Because you have the same body, the master has a body. Just like now you meet the master as physical. He looks just like you. He doesn't look different. He doesn't look magical. Neither does he look magical there. But the difference is you recognize, you could say telepathically, that this is something very special. This being is extraordinary. Although he looks like all the other radiant beings there, including you, you're also radiant. Because that's the form, yeah.
Just quickly, are the ghosts and other spirits radiant as well? Or do
No, the sub-astral form has a slightly different form. They're more shadow figures.
Shadow.
You know, the shadows that come and go. They're neither one thing nor the other.
Okay.
That's why we say they're in no man's land. You know, this sub-astral plane is not a nice place to be, because disembodied souls are there. There's lots of things going on. I don't want to talk too much about the negative side, but a lot of people, when they encounter this, they have very bad experiences, and you know, yeah, it's not nice. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, the last question relating to meditation. There are many brainwave audio entertainment meditation techniques. There is
Right.
even an audio consciousness development system, CDS, that claims to take one to higher states of consciousness, including Satgurus. Can Sant meditation be boosted by any specific brainwave entrainment system? Entrainment system. And can we use this to help in our meditation?
You know, Westerners are really funny and very entertaining. This is definitely a Western system. Only the West would develop a machine to aid your meditation mechanically. It's quite
Are you aware of
interesting.
this machine?
I know about different systems, not this particular machine, but there are the CDS system, the conscious development system, is something that's known. It's been around for a while in various forms, but now they have like binaural beats, what they mentioned, these binaural system where you listen to these beats and so on with certain frequency, and that creates a state of the brain which calms you to a point which is meditative. We have to understand what do we mean by meditation. I mean, there's many levels of meditation, and then there's spiritual meditation. So bhakti meditation is quite apart from all of this. But let's look at the meditations they're talking about. The people involved in this are not interested in going to Satgurus or anywhere. They're interested in attaining mindfulness and charging a few dollars for doing so. So Westerners are very kind of unique like that. If you can meter it or monetize it, they will. Now, spirituality is no bar to them. You know, they don't have any qualms about monetizing spirituality, creating some device you have to pay for, and maybe even attend sessions you have to pay for, in order for the organizers to make money out of it, you know. And they know that people are so desperate for some sort of spiritual experience, and they'll do virtually anything. They'll have a go at anything, you know. But the truth is that no, it doesn't work like that, because spiritual meditation raises above any activity of the brain. You cross the level of the brain. In fact, if anything, you go to the theta level, they say. They've described the theta level of brainwave, which has been measured by Harvard researchers some years ago, where they looked at meditations were in deep samadhi, deep contemplation, and they measured there was a theta wave. And it came from this study. This theta wave thing made commercialists realize, hold on a minute. So there's alpha, beta, and so on, all the way up to theta and so on. If we can simulate this effect in the brain somehow with a frequency machine, then maybe we can give the same experience that person was meditating without doing the hard work. You know, America's like that. They want everything fast and easy, right? So that's where this whole concept of the conscious development system came into being. And the various companies have tried to produce their own thing. There's even virtual glasses that allow you to meditate. You know, I think somebody's even come up with an idea in America where they play the master you follow, walking past backs and forwards. So now you can have the radiant form of the master, well, the visual form of the master as your dhyan, you know, and you don't have to, because some people heard that the master does a simon for you. So then the simon is recited automatically, the AI simulation of master's voice. So they create an AI version of the master, and they create the AI voice. So now you put these glasses on, which connects to headphones, and you just sit there and it does it for you.
Wow.
It's true. And that's typical of Westerners, thinking that this is a possible thing. But yeah, no, they're not going to give you any enlightenment. They can certainly awaken certain consciousness, because we are multi-conscious beings. So we have our subconscious self has different kinds of levels of comprehension, levels of peace or understanding, levels of intellect. So yes, you can stimulate things, but this is by no means anything spiritual, and it certainly doesn't take you to Satgurus, because Satgurus does not involve the brain or the mind at all, not even the body. So there's no question of going anywhere near Satgurus. You couldn't even get to the overlap zone with it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's just playing around in your own mind.
Okay. Right, I've got a question relating to love and devotion. I know you spoke about this before.
Yeah.
Can you explain how to grow more love and devotion for our master in our daily life while performing worldly responsibilities?
There's two parts of this. One is the practical and one is the spiritual. The spiritual part originates from the master itself, which you have no part in. The practical part, to earn the spiritual grace, is to earn the merit. You know, we spoke about this spiritual merit. If you live a life in such a way that your seeking is the most important thing in your life above all else, then automatically grace is earned. And this grace eventually leads you, despite whatever your karma is, even if you're a villain, will start leading you to love the truth. And that truth is manifested in a form, because we don't know what truth looks like. So truth has to manifest as something. We call it the master. When the truth embodied master appears in your life, you now have a focus of attention for that truth. You know, and that love and devotion grows because it serves you. The mind is an egotistical creature at its best, and it wants something in any deal. Masters know that you have to give them something. So the master appears, he uniquely connects with you, he has a focus of attention, and you take the credit for this love and devotion that's happening. It's not in your hands. The only thing you can do is be a truth seeker. If you're really a sincere truth seeker and you recognize, you have the comprehension to recognize the one who carries the truth, and then you start devoting yourself, not worshipping them, but devoting yourself to that representative of the truth in what they say, obeying them, following their instruction. That's what it means, not worshipping, touching them and praying to them and all of that. None of that. Then that love and devotion actually grows in you as a consequence, because you start connecting with that being on a more spiritual level. You start elevating without even realizing. Then the love and devotion grows. It's just simply not possible for me to say, go and love that man, because I do. You know, he saved me, so he can save you. You just can't do it. You have to build that relationship. And that relationship is built through spiritual practice.
Thank you. Right, I've got a few questions relating to the soul now. What are the souls doing up there in our true home, Satchkhand?
Well, Satchkhand is also known as the motionless plane, so that gives you a clue. There is no doing there. There's nothing to do, nothing to attain, nothing to achieve. Yeah. You know, the mind cannot comprehend this. We're talking about understandings here that are beyond the understanding of the mind. But I can say simply this. For people who are in a mindfulness state, they have only the mind's experience. What is it that most people seek in their mind? They talk about peace of mind. What does that mean? That means quiet mind, calm mind, still mind. Why? Because this not agitation, any movement or any activity of the mind agitates the mind. If the mind can attain perfect stillness, it is at its most peaceful. Okay? Now, mindfulness practitioners kind of recognize it, not all of them, depending on the level. Now, this concept is borrowed from the soul. The soul itself, after going through eons of time of agitation in creation, toing and froing, having to go on adventures, dramas, you know, even with the best will in the way, you need rest. So when you go to Satchkhand, you are in rest mode. What does rest there mean? Rest there means perfect stillness. There's absolutely nothing for you to do except be so perfectly still that not even the slightest agitation exists in you. And that is what the soul demands or seeks. Perfect stillness. So there's no question of doing. You know, no question of activity. Now, in that perfect stillness, greater awareness is given to you. Because the more you still the soul is still, let's say, in agitation, the more it becomes clear. And the only example I can give you is a body of water. Imagine you're looking at your reflection in water and you agitate the water. You can vaguely recognize that there's somebody looking. You can't recognize you. You cannot see the mole on your face. But imagine if that body of water becomes perfectly still. Now you see the reflection of you. You see everything in you. All the details, warts and all, everything. So the state of the soul in Satchkhand is exactly that, is attaining perfect stillness to such a point that the awareness of the soul is magnified. It becomes one with the souls there. It becomes one with the Father. Because the clarity of awareness, which expands beyond, allows it to see its connection, its origin, everything. So that, if anything, is what the soul does.
Thank you. Are we able to recall all memories of the past when our soul ascends to different planes of creation?
Yes. If you cross the astral realm, or even within the astral realm, you'll certainly have knowledge of past lives. You'll certainly have knowledge of many things, not only your past lives, but those people around you. You'll know who their relationship with them, whether you're enemies in the past, whether you're friends, your lovers, your colleagues. You will know everybody's position there. So that's why when you do this, you need a spiritual guide. You need somebody to guide you with a philosophy. So as a yogi, you do this on your own. You might come back with very difficult position, because maybe your wife is actually your villain from the past life. She harmed you, and now you're here to make peace with her. How do you reckon that? See, without a philosophy to guide you, it can be very dangerous, which is why masters generally say don't do this type of meditation unless you're initiated, because it can be very dangerous for you if you should be one of those that has access to even the lower astral realm and start realizing certain things. So yes, at every stage you see more clearer and better and wider perspectives of the past, as well as what is to come, even, as you get further, and many other things. And it also makes sense of your life now. So lots of things are shown to you. It's not just a question of past lives.
Thank you. Since all humans are in reality one soul, is it correct to say that our energy is affected positively or negatively by those around us?
Yes, we talk about energy systems here. Science is all about energy, from Einstein's equation. Yeah, E equals mc squared. Energy and mass are interchangeable, and in fact, it's energy the lead. Really, everything is energy. Mass is simply, in science, considered to be a condensed form of energy. If I condense energy enough, I create mass, which is where the atomic bomb theory came out, because they thought, well, if I reverse this process, I can get, say, a pebble which contains unbelievable amounts of energy within it. And that pebble, a single pebble, can destroy the entire Earth. Just a pebble, because the amount of energy in it. So yes, energy is everything. And so if we are all connected, but the things that we all come from the same creator, therefore all our energies are connected. But then there's a separation process that occurs in order for you to play your parts. The illusion, the veil of separation, which is necessary in order for you to play your part convincingly. So you see yourself as separate from everybody else, you see yourself as separate from creation, so that you can play the part convincingly. But that's not true. You are all one. That's how the energy system works. So sure, if there is suffering in the world, you will also suffer, because you're living in a suffering realm, But the difference is the subtlety of that suffering you cannot register until it becomes very close to home, like the world clubbers you on the head. Then you feel a bump upon your head. I know I'm suffering. But born in a suffering world or in a difficult world agitates you. So let's say you yourself are not suffering, you'll still be unhappy, and you don't know why, because you're living in a suffering world, and suffering around you, the energy is all around you. People pick up atmospheres all the time. How many times have you heard he walks into a room and he felt this heavy presence, this dark with an individual? You feel it. We are energy beings, actually. But it's just that we are cloaked in identities and in individualities that make us seem separate from everybody else. But that's how the law of karma works. Why should karma exist? Why should there be a consequence for you killing your fellow man? Because you and him are one. You're harming yourself. The consequence has to come back to you. It's a very practical rule.
Thank you. Okay, last question relating to the soul. Is it possible to communicate with someone on a soul level? How can we do this? And is it okay to do this if we cannot speak to the person in character? And would this method have any effect?
It's not possible for an ordinary individual to communicate soul to soul directly, although subtly that's happening all the time. in a certain kind of vibes which determine karmic relationships, or people are drawn to each other without knowing why, or they're drawn to circumstance or anything. That's the soul level. Mentally, you can communicate telepathically. That's the best thing you can do with the mind. Using telepathy, you can communicate with somebody else who's also able to receive telepathic messages and send them out. That's the best that you can hope for. It's not a question of communication. However, you can listen to the soul's wisdom. The soul gives you wisdom in the form of intuition. So when you're in tune with yourself, with your soul, then yes, the soul gives you intuitive feelings that override any kind of mental understanding you may have of anything that's happening around you. So yes, you can listen to the soul, but it's not a question that I can, with my soul, communicate with some friend to another way. No, but we can do that mentally. We only need to do mentally. Why bother with the soul for that? Yeah, don't need to. You've got another efficient mechanism. Thought.
Okay, thank you. Right, got a couple of questions relating to sound. How is the primordial sound or word known as Shabad in Sant created?
You see, if we're talking about energy systems, let's say we talk about manifestation. Let's forget about what happened before the Lord manifested itself. Once the Lord manifested itself, it has a certain energy associated with it, which we understand as energy. We call this energy Shabad. So it has the creative power of its will, and that will is a Shabad. It manifests in the form of a Shabad, which is a current of energy that manifests later on as sound. So masters refer to this Shabad as sound. Like in Christianity, they talk about the word or the logos and so on. Each religion has their own way of describing this creative power. This creative power is a natural consequence of the presence of the Lord. It's not that the Lord created the Shabad. The Lord is the Shabad. The Shabad and the Lord are one. The effect, for example, the image of seeing you is you. I'm not saying I'm looking at you through eyes, therefore I'm seeing something that you created. I'm seeing you, but my eyes are picking up a physical version of you, what I see of you. Yeah, but your natural expression is to be manifested physically. So when I'm looking at your natural manifestation, you're not creating that manifestation. I am seeing what is there. When the Lord manifested itself, it manifested itself as Shabad, as a creative power in which it self-created. And when it self-created, it was able to expand that creation and divided itself into countless forms, which we call souls. All of them having the same Shabad. Yeah. Now, not only that, there had to be a playground created for the souls to interact in. So creation came into being, again, Shabad. So that's why the religions refer to the creative power as the creator of the universe, including the Lord. So Lord is Shabad. In fact, in Gurbani and Guru Granth Sahib, it says the Guru is Shabad and the Shabad is the Guru, indicating the relationship between the Shabad and the Holy One. Yeah. So the question is that both come at the same time. Shabad and creator come at the same time. It's not a question that one created the other.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I have heard in a Sant discourse that karmas can be destroyed by connecting yourself with the Shabad. Can you explain this?
Yes. See, the Shabad draws you back to its source, which is the Lord itself. If you connect with the Shabad and you're on this journey, you now have built a relationship with your truth. And the truth is not karma. Karma is illusion. It's based upon the mind. It has nothing to do with the mind. So this connection with the Shabad is a spiritual experience from soul to soul. This is where the communication occurs soul to soul by the Shabad, when you withdraw your attention. If you catch the Shabad, let's say the big bell sound initially, that captivates you to such a point that now you're shielded. The Shabad protects you. It's not that the karma is destroyed. The karma record stays there, but you're not there to answer it. It's like if the court calls you to jail you, but you don't turn up to the court and they pass a jail sentence, 10 years, but you're not there. What difference? They can pass any sentence. You're not there. You're in another land, in another country, sunning up in the Bahamas on the beach. So you see, when you connect with the Shabbat, it shields you and protects you from karmic effect. So various descriptions said it destroys karma, it burns your karma, it prevents karma. Well, they're all right in a way. They're all descriptive methods. But the actual mechanism is a little different that most people would understand. It's a shielding from the effects of the karma. Because the karma that you have in this life has to be gone through. Let's say you become a perfect saint tomorrow. Nothing in your karmic life will change. Every breath you take, every illness, everything, every bad luck, good luck has to go through. What is the difference then for you becoming enlightened? The difference is how you cope. Because if you can go through all the same thing without suffering, with peace of mind, with happiness and joy, knowing it's not real, then does it matter that these things are happening to you? It doesn't matter. But for the sake of the law, the universal cosmic law, you cannot be the exception. You have to go through the law. You live in a land with a law. You are not the exception. Yeah? You follow the rule. The difference is you follow the rule to the amazement of others. They see you going through this karmic role, maybe even if you're a villain. They see you doing all these things, but smilingly, happily, and unaffected. Peace of mind and that kind of happiness and joy, is rare in this world. So, but a person who has the true versions of those is a person who's at peace with themselves. And the easiest way to get that is to connect with your higher self, to follow a spiritual path. Because then it doesn't matter what you do here, anything, even a villain. You'll be a good villain. You'll say to the Lord, you directed me to be the villain, and I did that villainy well. The Lord, who's the director of the play, said, you have played your part well. Because from the Lord's point of view, there's no difference.
And then you mentioned about you have to still go through your karma.
Yes, absolutely.
So is it a case, because you know what, you just said it there, it's about how you cope and deal with it.
Yes.
So it's not about the karma being not as severe as it could have been?
Well, the saints say you only pay 10%. What does that mean? It means you only feel 10%.
Okay, got it.
The amount is exactly the same. Because the saints cannot discriminate. They cannot say, okay, this one who happens to be chosen for the path is going to be now privileged and the others are not. Would you discriminate against children? Let's say you have 5 children. Would you really discriminate against them? You say, oh, this one is more of my child than that one. It doesn't happen like that. The Lord is fair. He's not to discriminate against anyone, whether they're initiates or not. But merit is merit. If the one has merit due to them, fair enough. Like, for example, he doesn't discriminate about paying his children a wage. But if they come to work in his business, the one who comes to work, he pays them. The one who's sitting at home watching Netflix, he's not going to pay them. That's fair.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's a merit system.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, I've got a few questions around judgment. What is the complete explanation of judgment? And why is judgment of any kind not in our best interest for those on the spiritual path?
Judgment is one of the greatest sins of humanity. If you can say there is a universal sin, it is judgment. And that's why all the great saints, mystics, are all against this judgment business. And they spend their whole time teaching you how not to judge and telling you trying not to judge. Because judgment is condemnation of another. It is rejection of the Lord's role in everything that's going on. It is an ego trip for the judger to put themselves above the one being judged. There are many, many things wrong with judgment. This is totally at odds with spiritual practice. For example, Jesus says, judge and ye shall be judged by the same measure, right? He says forgiveness, love, treat others as yourself, love your neighbor as thyself. This message of the saints of treating everything with love, the universal cause of creation is love. To spread this love, multiply this love. But we're so grossly removed from the purity of that love here that we now express it in activities, in actions. And we attribute these actions, some are more loving than others. And the ones that are less loving, we say they're not good actions. And the ones that are more loving, we say they're good actions. But it's not strictly true. No action is of any reality here. So judgment is a means by which the egotist wants to put himself above others. So he creates judgment. The biggest of those ego is the Kal, the negative power, who's created a whole judgment system. And they talk about Judgment Day in the holy books. Really? Yeah? If I'm a helpless creation of the Lord, and the Lord is judging me, I don't think that's very fair. Who would want to follow a judge? In fact, Great Master said that if I was to judge, who would follow me? Because no one is perfect. Masters are forgivers. The Lord is a forgiver because he knows full well that he's playing all the parts. How can the Lord judge the creation when he plays all the parts? Therefore, the creation should not also judge the Lord because it's only one playing all the parts. You should not judge. You should inquire, seek the truth. That's why they said replace judgment with truth seeking. You know, the Ishwarji is always going on about a truth seeker. Become a truth seeker, because a truth seeker does not judge. A truth seeker seeks the truth, no matter how uncomfortable that truth may be. So judgment is the exact opposite to enlightenment. Judgment is a dark pit that you dig for yourself because it turns you into ignorance. It does not involve seeking the truth. A truth seeker says, let me find out the truth behind this, rather than judging it with my limitation. Yeah, I have a limitation. I want to find the truth. And as Jesus said, the truth shall set you free. So truth is light, truth seeking is light, judgment is darkness. So you can decide where you want to go. Some people enjoy having a dark, miserable experience of life. Misery is their constant companion. Then go down the judgment route. Judge the creation, judge others, judge everything, even yourself. Go on happily judging. You will never find peace of mind with judgment. You'll never find happiness and joy. You will always be in agitation, always be in turmoil. I guarantee it. If you can find one person in this creation who is a judge, who's at peace, I will be shocked. It doesn't exist.
Thank you. Could you give an example of when a saint or perfect living master may have done something that most humans would deem immoral, and why we should not be quick to judge them based on their actions?
Why would you not let anybody develop? That's like saying because somebody when they were young shoplifted and committed a crime, now they're a noble citizen applying to be mayor of the city. Should they be condemned because when they were 12 years old they shoplifted? It's a nonsense thing. You know, we are evolving people in life. And whether it's spiritual or non-spiritual, we have a right to develop ourselves, evolve ourselves into better human beings and not to be condemned. Again, this comes under judgment. Who does the judging? Those people who have nothing. They have nothing themselves, and the only way they can make themselves bigger and better is to judge others. They wave the banner. But there's a very famous case in the Bible about judgment. Jesus said when the woman, the adulteress, was going to be stoned to death, he said to the crowd who was about to stone her, he said, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. And everybody dropped the stone.
Yeah.
You know, we're not perfect. Nobody's born here perfect. But we can become perfect. So you have to allow people to develop, recognize and champion this development, rather than holding them back because of some misdeed they're purported to have done. Sometimes they haven't even actually done it. It's allegedly. But you hold something against them. You think this has happened this way, that way. Everything's about intention. You know, mostly a lot of things are done innocently. But they are considered, no, they intentionally did it. No. You weren't there as the first party. You didn't actually interact with the two individuals. You don't know what actually happened for sure. You know, but you judge. So this person in the past, you've no idea of their circumstances or the karmic role they have to play. If on one hand you're saying the Lord is the doer behind everything, then on the other hand you're deciding to judge, you're the biggest fool. And you have to suffer for that. Whereas the one being judged can be spared. And you just grit your teeth and say, they should be hanged. But you're the one in misery. The one who's been spared is enjoying their life. Because they live it in the Lord's grace.
Thank you. Is it possible to completely prevent ourselves from judging even without having personal inner experience and thus using the higher mind only?
Yes, it's possible because knowledge is power, as Krishna said. Higher knowledge appeals to the higher mind. Now you have a spiritual form of the mind, because if you didn't have the spiritual form, like, nobody could use the mind to escape. It's just not possible. Then the whole religious concept would be pointless, because there'll be no way out. But in this form of creation, there's a little bit of a play going on here, a little drama. We have something called spiritual mind, who's very much aligned with the soul in a sense. Although it wants its own ego identity and it wants to take the credit, which is where it differs from the soul, nevertheless, it still wants to be noble and good and do the right thing and everything. And that's why all these teachings appeal. That's even why these satsangs are here, appealing to the higher mind. Now, when the higher mind is awakened, it starts taking charge of things. And then higher mind itself is noble mind. It starts recognizing the truth, and therefore it decides not to judge. It realizes that judgment is bad, because if it wants to attain that peace and that enlightenment that it seeks, it can't do that by going into dark ignorance. So it wants to move away from ignorance and darkness and judgment, condemnation, hate, anger, and all the other things that go with it. A judgment is an umbrella for all these things. Then naturally it elevates itself. So the way to get rid of judgment is to develop your higher mind of reasoning. Once your higher mind starts reasoning better, then definitely it is just simply not possible for you to be convinced by judgment. Even if temporarily emotional judgment comes in, like the shock factor, you immediately engage the logical reasoning of the higher mind and you understand what's going on. Or you just dismiss it, say it's not my affair even, because I'm only responsible for myself. I'm not responsible for everybody else. And I shouldn't put myself into anybody else's business. Live and let live, they say. Yeah, or as Hazur used to say, wear blinkers. Don't look around you. Just keep focused on where you're heading, what you're doing. Because at the end of the day, that's what you're going to be asked, not what somebody else did. But if you then use your ability to cast judgment upon others, mean casting a wider net, then you're dragging everybody else's misery into your own. Then you have to have the burden of all those miseries. Yeah, rather than just your own. Believe me, you have enough misery of your own to deal with. You don't have to cast a net and bring everybody else's misery into your fold. It's just not logical.
Thank you. Right, I've got a couple of questions about right and wrong. Why do human beings have such a strong sense of what they feel is right and wrong in this world, and what contributed to this?
This is just society's way. Each society has its own rules that decides right and wrong. If you go back to the ISTAuk times, they thought it was perfectly reasonable to get a young virgin woman to sacrifice to the volcano god so it wouldn't spew out the volcano, and cut her heart out while she's alive and hold a beating heart. And everybody stood there and clapped and praised. We would be horrified if that happened now. So where is the sense of right and wrong and morality? Yeah? It's relative to the society, its level of understanding. So as societies evolve, their level of understanding of right and wrong also changes. So the societies decide what is right and wrong at any given time. However, individuals within a society can override that. They can rise above or sink even lower into it. So the right and wrong that's taught to you from birth, the concept, is something that's based on the society you live in. So if you're born to an Islamic society, you may have a different point of view what's right and wrong, what's haram and okay, or halal and so on. A Westerner has a different point of view. A Christian has a different point of view. An atheist, a scientist has a different point of view. And if you ask all these people what is right and what is wrong, they'll all have different versions of it. Now then you ask yourself as an outsider, okay, I've come here to establish right and wrong. I'm not the wiser here. I've got many interpretations. Which one is right? The answer is it's personal. Right and wrong is personal to each individual depending on where they're heading in life. So if somebody's, say, heading for high spiritual truth, their set of values or their sets of rights and wrongs would be a little different to somebody who just wants to go in and enjoy themselves in entertainment and survive the night. Yeah, there's many different levels. So right and wrong is personal and unique to the individual, but society teaches you a sense of right and wrong based upon society values. And that's why people have difficulty going outside, because it takes a very brave person to go against mainstream society, like the saints do, and forgive those who have trespassed and all those other things, because saints are forgivers. They give you examples, it's possible. The saints do this, they're always forgivers. But they ask you to do the same. But it's very difficult for you as a society member to give up the ego of the society you belong to, this club membership, and say, despite what society says, I'm going to do the right thing. A right thing for you personally, meaning don't judge, don't condemn, don't discriminate, all these things.
Thank you. Okay, this is the last question relating to right and wrong. Is there an objective or universal right and wrong regarding intent, actions, and behaviour of human beings in this world?
Well, I'm going to answer this from a spiritual point of view. We've already gone enough into the physical way of looking. From a spiritual point of view, intention is everything. In fact, it is only intention that's actually counted, not action. Because whatever karmic actions has been scripted in your script, you have to follow that. Even if it means you kill somebody or harm them, because you have that relationship with them. You have been assigned that role. If you live in the true Lord's will, you go with the flow, you do whatever it is that's assigned to you. But what differs is your intention. If you intend to cause harm to anybody knowingly, then that's where the account comes into play. It is your intentions, which is why a great master used to say of the RSSB, used to say that intention is everything. Even in law, there's something called mens rea, a Latin term. Intention. An intention to commit a crime is completely different from somebody who had no intention and committed a crime. Let's say a murder. The difference between murder and manslaughter, both result in a killing. Manslaughter is somebody who had no intention to commit a crime, but he killed anyway through recklessness or whatever. Murder is somebody who had intent to kill the crime, and the sentences are appropriately different. So even humans recognize this subtly. There's a difference between intention and non-intention in an action. So actions are not what count, intentions are what count, because no one can act outside their script, no one. Not even the holy masters. Because when they take on a form, a body, they have to follow the script of that body, good or bad. Whether illness comes away, whatever it is. But they tend to take most favorable bodies on to make life easier, because they have a mission to accomplish. But the body still has to undergo everything. Their likes and dislikes still have to be there. So some masters like photography, others like football, others like training, others like technology. Yeah, they do all these things. Why do they have preferences? Why do they have likes and dislikes? This comes with the body. The difference is that a master has awakened the Shabad within them. They're in tune with the highest truth. And they are also authorized to connect others with the Shabad within them. That's the unique difference between a master and everybody else. Outwardly, they're exactly the same. They eat, they shit, they do everything the same as you. Absolutely. They have hobbies, they have interests, likes, dislikes. Some might like tea and others like mango juice. They'll display all the attributes that you have as a human being. The difference is that the Shabad has taken its abode in that one and they are enlightened. Yeah? But their life is exactly the same. They have to go through cancer therapy, or they have to go through, scandal or whatever. But they go through all of this. But the difference is how they do it. They do it smilingly, happily, contentedly, to demonstrate that despite adverse conditions, you can rise above it. That is the benefit of connecting with the Shabad. So by example, they demonstrate the benefit of spirituality for us. Because as I said, we are all seeking peace of mind. We want to have as peaceful and smooth life as possible. So therefore there is a way. And at the same time become realized. So masters give this demonstration at all stages, physical, spiritual and universal.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions around morality now.
Right.
Are there different stages of morality, such as rules, commandments, and precepts, versus principles, values, and intuition?
Yeah, again, morality is based upon very human viewpoints of good and bad. So morality changes over the ages. For example, in the time of the medievals, it was morally okay and acceptable for a knight to kill a serf or a slave of his land if they transgressed in some way, without a court, without judgment, without having to go through the appeal process of presenting a case to a court and everything. He could strike him down. That was perfectly acceptable. But for us now, that would be totally immoral. Similarly, up until the 1960s, people were hanged in Britain. And they considered to be okay for so long. Then suddenly they said that no longer moral. You know, for example, all discriminations, racism and everything was considered to be acceptable. Now we say it is not acceptable. Women were unequal to men. They were supposed to receive lower pay. They were second-class citizens. Now we have the Inequality Act, where women are treated the same, theoretically. So our sense of morality changes with time, with our understanding. As we evolve as a species, our sense of moralities are changing. So morality is probably not a really good way to gauge things by. It's better to go what's right for you and what's wrong for you. And what's right for you is that which gives you a peace of mind, gives you the smoothest ride in life, that doesn't upset the world that you're living in because there's a consequence. So we say do no harm, which is the universal law, do no harm. Do no harm means to you or to anything in creation. And if you can live your entire life with that precept, you have succeeded. It is very rare, because that is the ultimate commandment. Of all the commandments, if you want to live this life as smooth as possible, do no harm. That's it. But that also means to you, don't eat rubbish foods that harm your body. Don't put yourself into difficult situations that cause harm. Don't judge, because that comes back onto you as judgment, right? So there's many things. This do no harm has many subdivisions, which the religions have expanded upon. But ultimately, it means do no harm.
Thank you. Why do some people deem saints, mystics, prophets as not enlightened just because of their possible immoral or troublesome past prior to their enlightenment?
As I said before, because the egotists, not the enlightened ones, the egotists want to always boost their ego. Ego is an ever-hungry animal. It needs constant feeding at all costs, even to the detriment of the beholder of the ego. Imagine that. Something that can overpower you, to destroy you. Yeah? So the egotist casts judgment quite quickly because it feeds the ego. And the bigger inflated the ego is, I'm better than you and you're worse than me because you have a misdemeanor or something associated with you, then the egotists grow bigger and bigger until they burst and explode. So it's the nature of the ego. It's only the egotists who judge. The Lord doesn't judge. The enlightened ones never judge. And even those ones of higher thinking philosophy also realize that, no, that's not the way. Understanding, truth seeking, that's the way to do it. Understand the situation, not judge.
Thank you. Okay, I've got a few random questions.
Okay.
Now, so they could come from all over the place. Some say that psychotic episodes can be a spiritual crisis. Is this true? And they go on to say, people in bipolar states can experience the world in technicolor, all shimmering and full of light. Is this connected to the experience of the astral plane?
No, anything that the brain generates remains physical. It will always be within the physical dimension. It can never be spiritual in origin. So we call these things hallucinations. There's various words given to describe an experience that may seem out of body or but they're all hallucinatory. They're all within the physical realm, and they're all generated by the brain. And because of this, some people think that they're having a spiritual experience, but they're not. When they have the real spiritual experience, an out-of-body experience, then they look back and think, oh, well, that experience I had before was just a psychotic episode, exactly that. It was a deranged attitude, or a delusional attitude, or a hallucination attitude. It wasn't reality. So there's a big difference between a psychotic episode and somebody actually having a spiritual experience. And even if their psychotic episodes involves them seeing things, lights and glimmers and everything, as this one refers to, that doesn't mean it's spiritual. That's just imagination. I could get you to do that now. I could say to you, close your eyes and imagine that you're having a light and a shimmer and all that. And you could do that quite easily without having a spiritual experience.
Yeah. Even though they're making reference to spirituality and God.
They're just connecting it. That's their interpretation. They're trying to connect the two because they don't have the real thing. When you have the real thing, you know the difference. It's like saying to the child, this is a car. So you give him a toy car. He plays with it. He thinks it's real, it's his car. And if you try to take away from him, he won't let you. But then when his 18th birthday comes, you give him the keys to the real car, he'll throw the toy away and say, now I know the real thing.
True. Thank you. I think this is something... Okay, this is something that you might have said.
Okay.
Yeah, because they mentioned the speaker. The speaker has stated there will be a more virulent and dangerous virus in several years. Will everyone be forcibly vaccinated, or will some of us be able to refuse?
I think there will be a kind of learning from what's happened in the past, and people will, again, with this rising up of the civil unrest, where people are demanding more self-autonomy, self-control, and not being controlled by the state. There was a decentralization of government into local government. These are to come for the future. So there's going to be some benefits of this upheaval in decentralization. But there will be a campaign to vaccinate. There always is, because there's money to be made. When there's a crisis, you can monetize it. You can make money out of it. So the vaccine scientists and so on will say, hey, we've got a vaccine to solve this. Government, you come on board. We'll pay you tax for this, a lot of tax for every vaccine, and we're going to make money on these vaccines. The government spend from the public purse, using public hard-earned money to pay for this nonsense. And there will be that, but the position will be a little different. So you have to wait and see. I don't want to spoil the fun, but it's going to be a very interesting time.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. Right, next one. The recent rise of artificial intelligence is already transforming many industries and will continue to do so. Like all technologies, AI, which is artificial intelligence, is a double-edged sword that can be used for good or evil. In the short and long term, what impact will AI have on humanity, and what advice do you have to help us navigate through changing times and maintain balance?
The world is evolving in this era into a technological world, where technology in the 21st century will be everything. People will use technology to bring them happiness and joy, that thing that they miss within their heart. And yes, there's great danger with AI, because AI can assume non-AI form. In other words, for example, I could manifest, using AI, I could manifest a holy master giving a discourse, urging people to go and kill each other because the end is nigh, And it would look like him, it will sound like him on the YouTube, and susceptible people may actually do it.
Yeah.
May actually think this is the master doing it. So AI, like you say, is a two-edged sword. It can be used for the good and it can be used for the bad, like a knife. The knife itself is not a problem, but the knife in the hand of a villain takes a life. The knife in the hand of a surgeon saves a life. It's not the knife that's to blame, but the one who wields it. So we need laws to restrict what AI can be used for. And it'll be a whole new set of problems facing humanity. AI will beset humanity with complications, because they will pose, the most thing is the imposter thing, that they will become an imposter to reality in life, in the sense that they will pretend to be something they're not. AI could also be used to scrutinize every detail of you. Every time you log online, every time you connect, like every time you make a phone call, AI can accumulate data on you, and based upon algorithms which have been written, use keywords to decide whether you're an enemy of the state or not. So you could be suddenly dragged to the cells because your content said 3 words which, when said together, are constituting a crime. So there'll be new crimes based upon that, where you could be done for innocent conversations. And because AI can monitor everything, even let's say spirituality goes out of fashion. Let's say you are now belonging to a spiritual group like Sant, and your view is to be liberated, independent, so on. It is possibly in future times will say you're not allowed to be independent. You're part of the society. You're not allowed to do your own thing. You have to be governed by the rules of society. From the day of birth, everything will be laid down for you, right? We're not going to allow you to have any independent thought or any independent action, because that constitutes chaos. And this is a place of order. Believe it or not, that will happen. Now AI will be monitoring all of that. So it will restrict you. So there's great dangers with AI.
Thank you. So any advice to help people?
I think don't have to worry this time unless you're young. I would say always just do the best you can to minimize harm. In other words, the grace of the Lord can intervene in anything. You can be protected from anything if you have divine intervention. So I would say simply do the right thing for yourself, be a noble human being, attain to become noble, even if you're not, at least aspire to it. You don't have to be perfect. Just aspire to be the truth, seek the ultimate truth, and try your best to do no harm, no intentional harm. That is it. If you can do that, then the Lord will save you from all of this.
Okay, thank you. Right, got a question around UFOs now. UFOs, unidentified flying objects. These are back in the spotlight again with the recent United States Congress hearing on UFOs and unidentified aerial phenomena, which is UAPs. Do these congressional hearings represent a genuine step towards a public disclosure for greater transparency? Or is there an alternative government agenda? And they go on to say, some conspiracy theorists believe that this is all in preparation for a fake simulated alien invasion using advanced technology to control the masses through fear and deception. Could you comment on this?
Well, the second part is, as they say, pure conspiracy. There are people who like to damn everything, and any disclosure of information is always met with cynicism by certain groups of people. So I would really, for anybody who's in the spiritual practice, ignore any kind of sinister groups who want to put such a negative state that even the negativity of thought, which is killers, let alone any aliens. But yes, as I said earlier, to an earlier question about transparency, things coming out, yes, this decade, in this 10 years, lots of things are going to be revealed to us that have been hidden since time. And since the Second World War, one of them is the unique increase in activity of UFO activities. Now, in the book of The Sacred Truth of God, Life and Creation, Volume 1, Chapter 7, it clearly talks about the existence of aliens, the existence of certain beings here other than humans. Now, humans are not the only intelligent life form. So all this will start coming out. Now, the governments have known this for a long time. They've got very dossiers and files on captured UFOs, even alien beings. They have had them, interviewed them. And the aliens communicate by advanced telepathy. So when they communicate their sentiment, you can understand it in your language. They also have an ability to download your thoughts and download your thing. To have this communication thing fascinates military intelligence. Because if they can read the minds, produce a technology that can read the minds of their enemies or people around them, obviously it's all about empowering you better than your fellow citizen. So they're particularly interested in this. The military have got hold of this and they're trying to figure out, they haven't done this yet, but their aim would be to control the population by reading their thoughts. Yeah, but these aliens, like especially the Greys, they have an ability to communicate telepathically to you, but also to download all your thoughts, all your past memories. Because memories are stored electrically in the brain. Anything that has a physical manifestation ultimately is a storage of zeros and ones, binary digits, like information in a computer. You can't see the information in the computer, but when you press the button on the screen, suddenly this whole text comes up. But you look inside the machine and say, where did that come from? It's just a bunch of components, right? That's the miracle. So that is how we are, the stage we are at understanding telepathy at the moment. We do not understand how it is generated, how these aliens have such an ability to control the minds, mind control as well, because if you can download information from them and you can upload, you can also put information into them. So this fear of alien control of the masses. Now the thing is that I say that if their intention was hostile, they could have done this a long time ago. They could have sent a few key aliens here, communicate with the masses, put information to upload so that they kill themselves and the aliens take over. They could easily do it, but they haven't. So they're not hostile. So what's happened is that the younger now people working in the secret services have come to the realization that after 50 years of monitoring, nothing bad has happened to us by aliens. Therefore, they are non-hostile. So this US Congress, for example, that's recently come out, is based upon the fact that there's been non-hostility between us and the aliens so far. So maybe it's about time that we tell the general public what we've been doing behind the scenes. But they have to be very careful with this, because they're going to say this is a Freedom of Information Act, but at the same time the government's lied to us for all these years. They've been publishing there's no aliens, there's no UFOs, there's no nothing, there's no other technologies, there's no this. There's so many lies that's been withheld, so much information has been withheld that they will lose faith in the government. So they have to weigh out the odds here. They have to do this in a manner that's acceptable to the masses, which means a gradual release of information over time to allow people to understand about our place in the earth, what we truly know, like the hidden photos from the James Webb Telescope that really defies a lot of things. A lot of things have been recorded by NASA and everything which are not made public, simply because they don't want to create public panic and confusion. The government do not want to have to answer uncomfortable questions, so it's easier for them to withhold information. Similarly, a lot of technologies have been invented which will free us with free electricity and everything already, but the governments withhold them because they can't monetize it. So if we can't monetize it because it's free, like creating, there's so much energy in the air. You could run a motor vehicle, your phone, without using electricity. You could just exchange energy transfer from the air through quantum exchange, quantum field understanding. You can run just by living in an environment full of energy. You can tap into that energy and power your phone. So aliens have this technology. They run their craft also by thought. So they don't have buttons that they press on their craft. It's all by thought. So they direct the thought, turn left, turn right, and the craft responds. Because thought is an energy. It's a wave of energy. And if you can have an instrument that can pick it up and respond, recognize it, which will be the future of humans. Humans will be able to do it. Reverse engineering from the alien technology, they're already working on it. And it won't be long before they can start using the mind thoughts to influence matter. They're just trying to figure out ways of doing it yet. But they know it's possible because they see these aliens doing it. So, it's a very interesting times ahead. This century is going to be very, very interesting. The level of development of technologies are going to be quite amazing to us. But like with anything, it's a two-edged sword. Technology can also take over our life and make us miserable if it gets the upper hand. We have to have laws in place to manage this responsibly. And that is the dilemma of 21st century humans.
Thank you. Right, I've got the last question now.
Right.
I am looking to downsize my house to live a more simple and minimal life that is more conducive towards a spiritual way of living. Is it prudent to look at alternative energy systems like heat source pumps and solar panels in order to reduce our carbon footprint?
You see, from earlier talk we've had about do no harm and minimize your impacts on the earth, absolutely. Anything you can do to reduce your impact on this earth in a negative way is always good. If you have the ability to do so, it's not a question that if you can't do it, beat yourself up. No. If you have the means, the technology, the ability somehow to minimize what you're taking from this world and the impact you're having, the consequence of your life negatively upon this world, you should exercise that. As a human being, you should do no harm. You should not do anything that compromises the welfare of the planet that sustains you, the people around you, or the objects that have been made for you. You should always respect all things highly to the best of your ability, and should harm occur inadvertently, then also forgive yourself, because your intention is what matters. Your intention was not to harm, but it may be interpreted as harm. But learn from it. So learn, okay, I'll modify the behavior next time so that that doesn't come about. So you're learning. So yeah, it's an evolving state. So yes, they should definitely look at all possibilities, but don't beat themselves up about it. Don't do it to the point of their misery where they think unless they're doing this at great expense or something, they're somehow doing something wrong. No, they're not. They have to do it within their means. Do everything within your means. Do no harm to yourself or others, but yourself as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So dehi paje har ki sev pajo gobind pul mat ja मानस जानम का एही ला